want me to do it, I will.
It's up to you. I don't mind. You're all good.
Do paper, scissors, rock.
Everybody, welcome.
You've just gone quiet a bit. You've just gone quiet a bit. Mike's gone quiet.
No, we got people joining in.
Alrighty.
Welcome, everybody, to Lions Nation Unite. We got Herman, we got Malik in Australia, and Anthony the Brit with Grit going today about the Vikings game. I'm not going to be on, but I'm going to leave it to these guys. They're going to take care of business. Make sure you comment, subscribe, smash that like button, and they'll get to as many questions as you can. Take it away, gentlemen.
All right, what up, though, everybody in Detroit? Lions Nation Unite. It's your boy, Motor City Don P, here with Lions legend Herman Moore. We got Anthony in the UK. He's doing the late night thing. I'm doing the early morning thing live from Australia, and then you guys are doing the regular day thing in Detroit. So we got a big matchup coming up with the Minnesota Vikings. It's going to be in Detroit. It's going to be loud. It's going to be rocking. It's for all the marbles, man. 14-2 Minnesota versus 14-2 Detroit. Let's go around the room and just, what are your general expectations? We'll start with you, Herman.
Hey, first of all, say what's up to everybody. Welcome. Appreciate it. We are coming into a brand new year, but we got the Lions still doing what they did in 2024, and that's kicking butt and taking names. So that's a great way to start it off. I do want to say this, man. You know, it's been a long year, and I'm one of those people. I said this in the beginning, that I wasn't sure what to expect out of this team coming into the season. A lot of people threw up some gaudy numbers, right, in terms of where this team would end up. And Minnesota was one of those teams that were talked about as being, you know, someone to watch out for. You know, we heard, of course, about the improved Packers, and they were going to be bringing, you know, something to the party. Chicago was going to be competitive, but to think that we would have three teams that are already clinched, that are in the playoffs. You have two teams that are going for the first round bye and an opportunity to host a route in the final game of the season. I didn't expect that. So I would say this is a hell of a game. This is a big game. The city's abuzz. People are excited. I know everyone is coming in on a comment. They are super, super excited about what's going on with this team. And I think that the biggest storyline has been the fact that they've been able to kind of deal with the injury bug, deal with the fact that they've had so many players go down. We talked about the next man up. We've heard that as a throwaway line in all the seasons, but boy, if this is the year where that meant a lot, because this team has really stepped up and the next person has stepped up and handled business. So that's my take so far. I know as we go deeper and deeper into this, we're going to talk more about just kind of the more detailed breakdown of, you know, kind of what's happened and how we've gotten there. But I didn't want to just tell you that side of it. There's a lot to discuss about this team. I don't think you can wrap it up in a short piece. It's a lot of areas you can go with, and there's still a lot of football hopefully left to be played.
100%.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, you know, as a former player, like everyone wanted the Packers, you know, to beat the Vikings the previous weekend so we could have this thing rocked and rolled up going into this week. But like, for yourself, and like, how many of the guys in this locker room will have wanted this to happen? You know, I know that, you know, maybe we want the Packers to do it, but the 1 seed's on the line, the NFC North's on the line. These are the kind of games you live for as a player, right? Secretly, they must all have been wanting this to be the conclusion to the year.
Yeah, it is. You know, think of this too, right? Coach Campbell, it was interesting. I don't know how many of you, especially inside of the chat, want to chime in on this. You know, I didn't know what to expect. There wasn't a whole lot to play for, other than I knew as a player, former player, when they were going up against San Fran, that, you know, it's a conundrum, right? Do you play players? Do you sit players? You don't want that preseason effect where you go, okay, yeah, we're not going to really let the guys keep playing. We talked about momentum. Some people think that's an overreach sometimes, and that's overstated. But I don't know. I think there's something there. And this team showed that no matter the circumstances, they were going to take it serious. And they took it as such. Yeah, it seemed it was a little shaky in the beginning. But ultimately, I was concerned. I didn't want any more players to get hurt. We knew that it was really a throwaway game. It really, really was, other than statistically. But to have them come out and still come out of the game fairly healthy, and now start to hopefully get some guys back after, maybe during this week as well as the following weeks. It's just been one of those deals, man. Every week it's must watch football, must watch the Detroit Lions. And so I was, happy to see it worked out, but I was nervous. I don't know how many people were nervous, but I was nervous about too many people playing, man. I don't want anybody else to get hurt.
Yeah. I mean, just to piggyback off of that, when we were looking at, because I actually streamed the game with the Packers and the Vikings, because I'm like, it's the path to the Lions #1 seed. We wanted the Packers to beat the Vikings, because I was like, we kind of need two weeks of rest. But when you look at Dan Campbell, it's just, I don't think that was actually going to happen. And then how many people were they actually going to get back from IR while they had the 2 weeks of rest? I mean, we were going to get probably David Montgomery. He's not on IR, but we're going to get him back in the fold. Probably Anzo. But I mean, the list of guys that can't return from IR is pretty extensive. So we're not getting too much help coming back from IR. So I would agree that, yeah, we didn't want to see anybody else get hurt. But let's say, Herman, you were in this situation back with Barry, and who I call my football father. Okay. when you were in that, if you were in that situation and you're chasing the 1 seed and you didn't really have anything to play for, and let's say you didn't have the amount of injuries, would you have really wanted 2 weeks of rest, or do you think that's too much time off to get back in the groove?
It really comes down to how you bring up the strategy. I really believe players want to keep playing, and players, if you put in their mind, and you put in our minds that you may get injured, then you play as such. You play conservative. That's why with preseason, either you got to be all in, you got to be all out. Because if you're in there, the other teams are playing to win. They're not caring about whether or not you have another game or an important game coming up the following week. Everyone's playing for a purpose. And, I personally, maybe it's one of those that you just have to be cautious with the play calling. You have to be careful with how you're servicing up things. I think if I'm throwing to my receivers, I'm not taking unnecessary risks. I'm not putting them over the middle too much into, safeties coming down that are free in the territory. So I think they did a really good job of managing the play calling. And really Jared Goff did a great job of making sure also is, that he was protecting himself. He was protecting his receivers and so on and so forth. So I think it was a well-coached game, slow in the beginning, a little still concerned about the defense. Now it seems like a broken record. And a lot of people can disagree with that, but whether you agree or disagree, but it's going to get tougher for this defense going in. And San Fran, while I think we're a competent team, they got, pretty good quarterback. They got tight ends, they got receivers, they got some versatile players. I think this team needed it for morale more so than anything else, to make sure that they knew that maybe it was vindication too from last year. I think it had a little bit of that in it as well.
I mean, it feels like you kind of have to factor the culture into this as well, because Dan trains them to play hard, to be the best, to be the strongest. And, you don't take any time off. That includes games when, even when much may not appear to be on the line, you still treat it like it is the most important game out there. And if you try and deviate them away from that, that might have an adverse effect. Like, they're in this position they are because they work harder than everybody else. They play harder than everybody else. And that's why I like having the game this week with all the stakes in, because that's when they play at their best. When their backs are to the wall, people are expecting them maybe to not be able to get over it. People doubt them, people write them off, and that's where they want to be. But for that San Francisco, I thought he did it right. We've got to live or die by what Coach Campbell does, right? He plays them tough, he plays them hard, and we can't deviate from that. And sometimes we will have to take things we don't particularly like, but overall his ethos seems to be the right one.
Oh yeah, and it's a confidence booster too, if you think about it, right? So you're going in, you got Minnesota playing, you got Green Bay, everyone's playing, And I think it would be wrong for the Lions to step off the gas pedal a little bit and put themselves in a position where they have to kind of pick it back up. Now you're coming into it knowing there's confidence from what you had to do to still come from behind. You beat another NFL team. You beat the team that kicked you out of the Super Bowl last year. You're coming back home. You're playing for everything. I mean, that is a huge fall from the winner to the loser of this game. And you have everything lined up for you. And that's, it's the best scenario that you could possibly hope for, where it is, we talk a lot about, we want our own fate in our own hands. Well, what you ask for, your wish is our command. Here it is. The Lions have it all in their hands. And now it comes down to the execution side of it. And they're going to need it. I think Minnesota is starting to move forward. I still think, and I know Kay ain't pressed. I was looking at that thing in there. She said she's tired of hearing about the Vikings and their fan base. But I'll tell you this, I think they're coming in, getting that momentum in terms of what they believe, because they've been winning coming down the stretch. But I just their defense seems pretty decent, but I think there's still a lot of exposure. I'm for some reason I'm at ease, if you will, about this game. Not like being, overlooking the Vikings or anything like that, but I know this is a winnable game, given all the circumstances that the Lions have gone through, given all the things that we've seen, and the fact that the Lions are just clicking. No matter what happens, I don't care about the adversity. Doesn't matter about they are clicking when we think they're not going to click. Man, that is confidence. That is something that this team, this coaching staff is definitely looking at, saying, we got this. We got this. So it's all good. Let me take a real quick shout, man, real quick. Just say what up to a lot of people. I always love hitting up people that's on here. Hey, Frog, what's up? I already mentioned Kate. What's up, Kay? Let's see what else we got in here. We got Keitho. Always got our legends in here. Kurt, appreciate you being on. Dana, what's up, Dana? Happy New Year. Speak Easy. Come on, Easy. What's up, Easy? What's good, brother? I know CZ, I don't know if she's going to be listening. She probably is. J-Rod. Appreciate y'all getting on here. And Broski and Janice. So, and Bobo. Bob Bo.
Yeah, Bob Bo, it looked like.
Y'all don't know, y'all gonna have to start. We got to start taking your government names. I know you got your official names. We're gonna have to start either going with government, or we're gonna have to start putting some real easy ones. We have to go with acronyms. What's good, everybody?
Yeah. I think Kay needs to change her name to Kay is pressed, because she's always scared. And shout out Broski Bear, man. I haven't seen you in a minute, bro, since it was 35-14 Titan in the Titans game. So I haven't seen you, but you've been around. So I wanted to kind of piggyback off of what you said about the defense. The last time we saw this defense at home, they seemed to come out a little bit lethargic. They came out lethargic, it seemed, on Sunday night. Mm-hmm. What do you think is going to be like? What was the reason for that? Do you think? I personally think the Bills were kind of looking ahead, and maybe that's why they lost to the Rams, because they were looking to prove something against the Lions. I think the San Francisco 49ers were looking to prove something against the Lions. And now we've got the Vikings, of course, who are looking to prove something against the Lions. Byron Murphy, every time you put a microphone in that man's face, he talks about how you shouldn't be talking about the Lions. You should be talking about us. What we're doing is great. A lot of bulletin board material. So what do you think is going to be the energy level? Are they going to bring that black Air Force energy with the black, uniforms this Sunday night?
I think the uniform is going to look cool for the fans. It's going to be cool because they do the blackout. And they bring out the uniforms. They look hard and all those things. And hey, Anthony, I don't know if they got a whole line of those jerseys still left over there. I know the black jerseys sell out over here all day. So
I love them. I've been asking for years and years for them to bring the black jerseys back. I was one of those who didn't believe in the curse. I am delighted that they are back.
They look mean. They look mean.
Fire.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So put it like this, man. Let's look at it. And if we go back and you talk about Buffalo, I look at Buffalo Bills, tough team. They have balance. They have a dynamic quarterback. They have a defense that plays aggressive. And they, as close as that people may want to think that game was, it wasn't as close as it looked, right? That Buffalo was basically scoring at will. We look at San Francisco, and then we fast forward, and I don't think there were any punts, right, in the entire game, and that's not a good thing when you're talking about you can't rely on your defense. I mean, your offense to score every single time they touch the ball. That's what they had to do against Buffalo. That's basically what they had to pretty much do against San Fran up to a certain point late into the game. And then you look at Minnesota. I think they're going to have problems with teams that have a balance of run and pass, because we saw the exposure against San Francisco in the play action. Everyone from receivers to tight ends getting behind our safeties. We see a lot of people are now starting to put picks on our slots. If you get Branch coming down and playing over a slot, they're trying to pick him. They're picking our linebackers who, they're not just used to coverage all the time. And I think teams have gradually and slowly been picking apart areas of weakness and exposure. And that's before they even get to the fact that they already taken a risk going man-to-man coverage. Well, now you're going to be facing Minnesota. They have a four-person attack. They have running back, they got tight end, they got 2 wide receivers, right? And they have a quarterback that's playing at probably the best he's played in his career. And you have a defense that has some playmakers on their side. So I think that's where the struggle, that's why I start to become a little bit more nervous than when I see one-dimensional offenses that the defense faces, where they got to shop one receiver, one running back, right? Or when they have a defense where they just really don't have a secondary and our offense can go out there and have their way. So this is going to be, I'm a little nervous when I look at the matchup problems that could potentially occur. And I think Minnesota's had enough time and enough footage now to go in and look at where those areas of opportunity will be. I think they can slow the game down because they have a running game, but I think they can also apply pressure and force the tempo of our Lions offense because of the defensive pressure that they will dial up. So there's a lot of things to look at here. So the long answer that was to the jerseys and to the environment and those things, I don't think they care. I think we care. But at the end of it, it's all about the game plan, and the NFL is all about matchups. And this is a matchup issue, in my opinion, for the Lions. But I think the advantage goes to them because of the fact that they beat them. Minnesota thinks that was a fluke, and they want to come in and now be, spoiler at the Lions' home stadium. So I think there's a lot that's going to be happening in this game. 2 well matched up teams. It's incredible that they're both 14-2. This has been one heck of a year for the NFC North.
Is there a quick question? Do you give any credence to streaks? Because it seems as though when we look at the last 6 matchups, the Lions have dominated this rivalry. We're 5-1 in the last 6 attempts. Kevin O'Connell is 1-4 against the Lions. Brian Flores has never beat the Lions. So is there something in a player's mind that kind of creeps in, or does that not matter at all?
I don't think it matters. I think you pay attention to, as I mentioned before, the momentum. But I don't think we're going to pay a ton of attention to. I think when you line up, there's a lot that comes into play in your preparation and the time leading up to it. But once you play it, you're at restart. It doesn't matter. Even if you as a player, they always tell you if you had a good game or a bad game, it doesn't matter. It becomes equal. Whether you beat a team or lost to a team the previous time or not, it doesn't matter. It's about how do you prepare? How do you make adjustments? All teams have to make adjustments. Players all have to do some inner soul searching and corrections. But at the same time, you have to keep yourself playing at a high level. You look at how many players on the Detroit Lions are playing offensively at a very high level. That's what's gotten them here. So the pressure is you can't step off the pedal. You can't fall off. You can't have a bad game. You can't fall into penalties. You can't fall in third and long situations. You can't fall into incompletions. There's an expectation that has become the engine that makes this offense go. Defensively, it's not giving up certain things. Like all these things take away whether or not you care about how often something has occurred. So when you get into the, 10 wins, 5 wins, 3 of these, it doesn't matter. It comes down to this particular moment. And I'd love to be a fly on the wall in the locker room right now, because I know with Coach Campbell, he says the same thing every week. And it's out of passion, it's out of commitment, and it's about trust and belief in each other. But then his coordinators and everyone, he has everyone. This is the first time I've seen this. You have everyone on the same page, believing in the same thing. Whatever it is that you do your best. Think about how many playbooks. I have to go get a big playbook like this to typically give to people. All he's asking is like 3, 4, 5 things. That's it. If you do these 3 to 5 things, everyone, and commit to those, we'll live with the results. Come on. Simplicity at its highest level.
Right. All right. Anthony, you got any questions for that?
No, I think Herm summed it up quite well in terms of the defense. We're struggling with the lack of linebackers at the moment. These guys, a lot of them have been special teamers. JRM's just back from injury, and you're putting an awful lot of pressure on Jack Campbell, who's the second-year guy, to try and run everything in there. And you saw the 49ers, Kittle, it's just devastating having him on some of these guys, and it's taking our secondary out the equation. And then the lack of a pass rush as well is also starting to affect things, because if you can't get to the quarterback too quick, he's got an easy out down the middle of the field to get it out there, or he's got time to hit us deep with it, and the guys in the secondary are having to hold up for a long time. Is there anything schematically you can see them doing better, Herm, in this situation? Because it's just, you're so far down your depth chart in some areas. It's like it almost feels impossible for them to be able to do anything a lot different. I know having Anceloni back would be huge. It feels like they do need a bit of communication on there, someone just to settle them down. When the backs are to the wall, teams are pressing on them quickly. Obviously, that lack of leadership in there seems to be hurting as well. But it just seems very difficult to see what else he can really do differently at this moment in time.
You know what? I give Jack Campbell another year. I think this was a defining year for him. You look at him; he's leading the lines in thinking tackles. He has really made his presence known. I've seen him, get exposed, obviously, in pass coverage. I don't think that's a big strength of his. I think he's played well at times, but his run support, his ability to apply additional pressure when he steps up into the line, he's very disruptive because of his size and the fact that he's able to get in there and really be a force. That mid-level is, I see everyone pulling the corners out. They're pulling the safeties out just so they can get the exposure on the linebackers. When you look at Hawkinson, and we know TJ from being here, they're going to be going after that. And I wouldn't be surprised if also they have the running backs involved in the passing attack a little bit heavier. So that means our linebackers are going to have to support. We've seen Branch have to come down and play a little nickel or play a little bit on the slot receivers. So, when he's been pulled out of the secondary, obviously his impact of the deep passes and those things have kind of gone away, because now you got Kirby Joseph trying to play the entire, deep field on all thirds of the field, right? So I think right now the pass rush is the quickest way to solve some of their defensive issues, to force quarterbacks to get the ball out faster, to not be able to get to their second and third reads. But as long as that occurs, some of the pitch and catch that we saw with Purdy was too easy. It was really, it was, they called some of the picks. Teams are going to clean up those picks. Okay. Some of those were just getting called, and the big plays with Kittle kept getting called back. But if you look at it, man, it's just, you clean up that. They didn't really need to have the pick, right? To make those things happen. So defensively, there's a lot to clean up. Offensively, they can't have a fall off, especially against the Vikings. Otherwise, I think they have big capability. It's good seeing J-Mo get back involved. There are so many matchups. If you look at this right now, I go, what are the biggest matchups we're looking at? Okay, if we look at defense, I look at the defensive side. There's been some leakage on the offensive side for the Lions on their line. That line's a big line. It's a solid line, but there's been some leakage, all right, in terms of people getting pressure. We're asking a lot from a team that has gone. But right now, they're at the most pivotal moment of the entire season. And I think they'll come through with it. I really do. I really do. In my heart and soul, I feel that they will still handle the Vikings.
So, in keeping with the matchup question, right? The biggest matchup that I'm looking at is this secondary versus Justin Jefferson. And we saw the Minnesota Vikings kind of abuse the seams against the Green Bay Packers. And then we saw San Francisco abuse the seams against us. So from a coverage standpoint, I'm looking at, combo coverage, kind of bracketing Justin Jefferson, and then trying to play man across everybody else. I mean, Terrion's going to have to stick with um, what's his name, Addison. And I don't know if it's going to be Branch mostly covering Hawk, or is it going to be a combination between Branch and the linebackers? So what would you do just kind of in the secondary? Because I know we have not the greatest pass rush because we've got DJ Reader from the beginning of the year. And if we don't get Anzo back, we've got Jack Campbell. So our front seven's got two people from who were the original starters from the beginning of the year. So what do you think that they try to do schematically in the secondary to mitigate the pass? Not the passing game.
Well, I think I'm gonna rely on my front to stop the running game. I'm gonna make them want to favor their running game versus their passing game. I'm going to put a defense that discourages and deters you from wanting to really try and get the ball to your wide receivers. And the reason I say that is because of the lack of the pass rush. I know if I go into a pass rush situation, if the pressure doesn't get there, receivers, especially Addison, Justin Jefferson, and Hockenson, you get guys that know how to get open, and they already can beat coverage that's tight. It becomes even more problematic, and you got to commit way too many people in the secondary to cover that. So I would commit more people in the secondary to say, listen, I'm going to give you the ability to run, and I need my corners and I need my safes. I need everyone to come up and really run support. And you really try and, instead of worrying about the pass rush, you worry about, can you cover the lanes? Can you not get trap blocked? Can you not give up too much? And then, just make them work their way down the field. If they have to go on a 10-play scoring drive and they score, I'd rather live with that than to have them scoring quickly. And then my offense has the pressure to come back and sustain a drive and walk away with points on it pretty much every time they got to touch the ball. I don't think Minnesota's is disciplined enough to continue to have drives like we saw against like Buffalo and San Fran, where they just don't get off the field. I think that'll happen just because they take chance, they take risks that sometimes they probably shouldn't or need to. Ben Johnson has called one heck of been a play caller this season offensively, he and Aaron Glenn, in terms of how they've managed the ball games. So I give us some other tangible pieces that can help offset some things where we may be lacking in other areas. But I do really believe controlling that is making them run the football and not giving them ability to Aaron Glenn has talked about, and everyone's heard this. And I cringe sometimes when I hear it. And he goes, no matter what, we're going to play man. Well, you can't always, in my opinion, you're playing the odds that teams will just not be able to keep hitting that open man, because this is just not a man coverage defense. And that's not a slack or a slight on any of these players. I just think some of the players they're going against just are too dynamic and they have too much ability. That's like us saying we want people to play St. Brown man to man or J-Mo man to man. No, sometimes you just say, no, you don't play those type people as much as you want when you want to play them in man. I think there are situations and circumstances that will dictate that.
Why do you think he is so stubborn on the man coverage? I know he plays zone at times, but just like you said, I mean, Amik has been fantastic since he moved back outside. We know he was outside last year with the Raiders, and that's primarily where he played. Terrion Arnold, who I think has sticky coverage, but he just needs to learn how to get his head around and also trust his technique, because when he gets grabby, you can almost see it out there. He's got the ish, I'm about to get beat. Let me grab him. So, I mean, I understand the development of Terrion Arnold, and he's a rookie. I'm not going to be too hard on him. I feel like if he gets his head around and learns how to look for the ball and trust his technique, then he's going to look like Sauce Gardner did last year. We don't want him to look like Sauce Gardner does this year. But what, like, speak to the stubbornness. Did you ever experience that in your situation with coaches? Like a coach just was like, this is what we want to play, this is what we're going to do. I understand imposing your will on everybody else, but when you don't have those pieces, it gets kind of iffy.
No, he's done, it's hard to argue, when they're winning, right? So they're 14-2. They've been able to escape some of those things. There are some places in there possibly where they could have lost games that they pulled out and they won because other teams didn't manage them properly, and whatever the case may be. However, it's going to get tighter. There's going to be more scrutiny on how you're scheming, how you're playing opponents, how you're preparing for them, because of the fact that there's just some things that you can't cover up. We can't, just because you want to do something doesn't mean you're good at it. And just because you want to do something doesn't mean it's something that you should be doing, because it become a liability and it makes the game plan be a little bit harder than it needs to be. And I'll give you a case in point. I remember we used to have coverages and sometimes the guys would play off and, people just got upset, and receivers sometimes will get upset. We don't want to throw a 5-yard hitch route. Well, if the guy's playing 7 yards off and I can get 5 to 7 yards every single time, I'm gonna keep doing that until you stop it. That's called forcing you out of what you want to do, and now you're reacting to what I have to do. Right now, teams want them to play man. See, that's the thing. Like they want the Lions to play man coverage. They're hoping for that. When they see that, look how often teams are going to start checking off, or look at the different signals. And I see the signals, right? A lot of people aren't probably paying attention as much. I see the receivers, I see the quarterback, man. I see every little sleight of the hand that they're doing over there, and every little piece that happens to show that they're making these changes. And all I'm saying is, there's exposure when they see Terry and Arnold. And if I was out there I'm Justin Jefferson, I get someone, I see that person on me, I got plays dialed up to whenever they think they're going to go man, that quarterback's going to check out whenever he wants out of that and put us into something totally different, because we got the matchup that we wanted. And that's what they're waiting on. Versus, I think offensively, that's just too much pressure. And then we're going to be down a person, a running back. The running game isn't the same. Okay. It's there, it's effective. And I love seeing the fact that we can still get 5 to 6, 7 yards, on the push. But you're going to start it's going to get a little bit firm up there on the inside, and you're just not going to be able to get those yards. We saw that with like the Texans, right? You got to loosen them up with the pass, but then teams are going to do the same thing with the Lions. So I really like if they can go zone. I mean, I can't say that enough. And I think if they protect the thirds, protect the seams, don't give up the big plays. Sam Darnold, I think there could be an opportunity for a pick or two that's in there if you set him up properly, because he's going to be looking for his two top guys. They're going to try and attack the seams. That's going to happen. But I don't know, man. Between man coverage and then linebackers covering guys makes me a little nervous.
Especially if it's Ezekiel Turner. I'm sorry, but that Buffalo game was rough. All right, so we talked about the defense. I think we talked about it until we're blue in the face. We know we are kind of up against it on the defense because of the pieces that we've lost, and you can't expect. We were the number 2 scoring defense a few weeks ago, and then Buffalo came in, and now we're down to number 8, after the San Francisco game, which cool. I mean, we're still top 10, but that's a little bit misleading, because you're top 10, but you're moving down. You move from 2 to 8. So that's the wrong direction, but we know. So offensively, what can we expect? I call myself the official keeper of the JMO. I have always been a JMO guy, since he got drafted. Do you expect him to get targeted early and often? He needs 33 yards to get 1,000. Do you think that creeps into Ben Johnson's mind, or do you think they're just going to kind of let it come how it may?
Yeah, that's going to come natural. That's going to be just part of the natural part of the progression of the game plan. I don't think at this point any of the players are going to be playing for statistical reasons as much as they're going to be playing for methodically. How do you go out and you win the football game? They're going to have a discipline that they're going to have to face. I don't see them breaking that. J-Mo, when he disappeared a little bit, we started to see him get a little shaky because he wasn't being targeted. He was only being thrown deep passes. This guy thrives on the attempts and touches. When you give him attempts and you give him touches, it seems to boost his confidence. It gives him just, I think, a sustainable mindset throughout the entire course of the game without falling off. And you can see that gradually he comes along. But when he's there from the beginning, there's an energy that he brings. And again, our receivers continue to block downfield. They continue to do the things away from the football. St. Brown's probably one of the most patient people that I've seen in terms of, it doesn't matter if he's getting passes early or late or in between. He stays focused because he knows he's going to be a dependable person. And that goes by just looking at how many catches he has on converting the chains to first downs, right? And so everybody's got a role to play. I think he'll get his yards in there, not a big deal. But there's a lot of players that have played well. There's a lot of individual accolades that have gone, and I even wanted to go through and get from you and Anthony your take on right now. I know we got one more game left, but this is close enough to be able to say who are our players of the year, offensively, your defensive, and so on and so forth. Because I'd like to think about 2 or 3 players. Like, who would you give those to? And you don't want to individualize this team because I think everybody has a role to play, but there are some that you just know are the glue.
I mean,
and when I think about and I want you to think about this, and I want Anthony, I want you to take this one, because when you start, I thought it was easy. At first, I was like, offensively, it'd be Bob, this person, this person, this person. And I was like, well, but no, I have to put this person in there because these people can't do that without that person. You see what I'm saying? It used to be, it was that guy. You go to most teams, it's that guy. It's because of that person, and that's it. That's hard. That shows how spread this is in terms of what this team has done and the different contribution that needs to come from different places. So I'm gonna sit back. I want to see who we got here.
I mean, this may be the easy one, but for me, Penne is the one in there because he was building block number 1 for this regime. Like, he was the first big guy they brought in. He sets the tone. You see before every game who's the one geeing them up, giving the speeches. He's the one doing that. Who is the guy who leads by example, by the way he plays? I mean, this season alone, he must have lawn darted most of his receivers across into the end zone and plays where you see him make a block. You may see him make 2 blocks and he's pushing his guy in. He is the quintessential essence of what this offense is. He's the quintessential essence of what Detroit is. Grit, playing hard. No matter how good he gets, he can always be better, and he's always pushing himself. He's the guy who sets the standard, and he's the guy who plays above the standard and is always pushing guys to be there. And without him, I don't think you're anywhere near the point where you are now, because he is, just such a leader here. He's such a focal point for us. So, I would put Penne in there, and I think he deservedly is so. More than anybody else, he's the guy in there. Outside of that, you're right, Herman. It's very tough to pick guys, and again, this may seem like the easy answer, but I would put Amon-Ra in there as well. And specifically, it's a good question to ask us with this Vikings team as well. This Vikings team have never been able to deal with him. He has gone over 100 yards and a touchdown in each of the last 3 games against them. And what he does, he finds ways to exploit their middle of the field, their linebackers. He's retired a corner a year since he started there with how well he's played against them. And, his ability to, because what that does is it opens up the run game for us. They've got to sit somebody in and try and stop him making plays, because if they come up and they sacrifice against the run, he's going to find the gap and hit a big play downfield. If they put extra men on him, we're going to run the ball through them. We saw that in the first game this year. Gibbs was running plenty of, he got a lot of rushing yards in the first one. Amon-Ra did, as through the air. So, but again, he's the tone setter, the one who he's never good enough. He's always pushing the standards. He is the guy in the middle of the field who opens everything up for the rest of us. Campbell showed you his last 3 plays I can't remember the game it was, when we got blown out by somebody. And he showed you Amon-Ra blocking on every single play right before the end of the game when he had no need to. They'd lost. And he's the guy out there. He tossing people. He's just grit. And that's where you're going. It's the establishment of the culture with guys like this for me, which has really made this team so good. And again, he's the first-year guy. He's a pillar like Penne was. These two, for me, are the ones that have just completely changed everything here and redefined what it means to be a Lions player. So I know it seems like the easy two, and I would love to try and come up with one that's a bit avant-garde and out the way, but, I have to say how I see it. Those two are the guys.
All right, okay. You done took all the glue, and I don't have any left.
No, so you got to have some. I know you got some. Come on.
No, I don't have no more glue left, but I got some stuff. So I'm just gonna stay on brand, right? As I said, official keeper of the JMO. I'm a speed guy. I did give Jahmyr Gibbs the nickname the Electrician before he took Sonic. I like that one better, but Sonic and Knuckles, I understand it. But if you look at JMO, he's unlocked this offense. I feel like it's the historic offense with Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Jameson Williams all going over 1,000 yards from scrimmage. This has never been done in the history of the NFL. The NFL has been around for a long time. I feel like he put so much pressure on defenses because I go back to the Rams game. I said if the Rams are dumb enough to single up JMO, it's going to be a problem. And they tried it with Tre'Davious White, and we saw that man, he got burnt all the way to Baltimore. Like, he got cut, and he got picked up by the Ravens later on in the year. And we see the first touchdown that Jameson scored in his career was the first time he touched the ball where somebody, I don't know what it was, a busted coverage, somebody fell down or what it was, but against the Minnesota Vikings, Jared Goff laid it right in there, ran under it, in the end zone. Welcome to the NFL. I feel like he is one of those guys that he does so much for this offense. Jahmyr Gibbs, obviously we have to have an offensive line. They have to do their jobs. But the guy is so fast. He's so dynamic. If you take the wrong angle, we saw it in I believe it was the Titans game. If you take the wrong angle, you're going to pay for it. 70 yards to the house. Last week, or we can say last week, right? Sunday night against the San Francisco 49ers, he averaged 6.5 yards a carry on 18 carries, 117 yards. So I think the dynamism that these guys bring to the offense, it just has taken it to another level. And then the easiest one, because it's difficult, right? The easiest one is Jared Goff. The maturation of Jared Goff. This is not the version of Jared Goff that came to Detroit. This is the version of Jared Goff that we have now because Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson and all of the offensive staff have put their trust in Jared Goff and have developed him and have taken their time with him and have been patient with him. And that's not what they did in Los Angeles. That's not what Sean McVay was after. Sean McVay was after, I got to win now. I don't have time to develop a guy. And this is why we see Jared Goff now entering his prime. And as he said himself, I hope my prime is, very extensive. Right. So I think those are my 3 that I'm going to take.
So I'm gonna have to preference this. So when I looked at, I was going back and forth. I was like St. Brown. Then I was like Jared Goff. Then I was like, man, but Jahmyr Gibbs, man. I look at just some explosive plays and just what he's been able to do, and he's shown that he can keep up that same pace without Montgomery being there, and he could still carry the load. But they can't do it, any of those players, without a lineman. So I got to pick a lineman. So I'm looking at Sewell, right? But then I said, I'm going to cheat a little bit. So I'm going to give my offensive MVP and player of the year to Jared Goff. Here's why. Because he's the one that is, once he touches it, he's either handing it to someone who he's throwing it to someone. And he's got to make that right. He can take and negate all the talent, all the good blocking, all the great route running, and any of the other things, the skill abilities that the running backs have with them. If he doesn't do his job, he's central. He's a nucleus. And I used to always push back against why quarterbacks always have to get the MVP, right? That's why I'm not giving him the MVP. I'm giving him the offensive player of the year. I'm giving St. Brown the MVP. And here's why. I look at how many games he saved. I've looked at how many times he's had to keep a pivotal third down going, so that allows himself and other players to have an opportunity at least three more plays, and just kind of closing out the games. And I'm not being biased towards the receiver, but he can go 3 quarters and you don't hear his name. But then when you need him for that first down to close the deal, you need him to keep the chains moving so you get in position to score or kick the game-winning field goal. That's the guy that seems tremendously dependable. And if you find him, he comes through. Some of that has been, I think teams have misplayed him and covered him. And then other times I think he's just been crafty enough and they've hidden him enough. And Ben Johnson has allowed him to use his skill sets enough to really put teams at a disadvantage. So that's where I'm going. But then I go, I can't leave out a lineman. Lomas Brown would kill me if I left out a lineman. You can't have an offense without linemen. And we've seen what happens when you have mediocre lines, when you have lines that just don't play well together. And there are some places and times where the line hasn't played collectively great together, but they've been cohesive, man, and they have been solid. I mean, Penei Sewell, though, has been a beast. He has been a beast on that front side, man. He has been a beast. And so I'm going offensive lineman of the year, Penei Sewell, offensive player of the year, Jared Goff. But my MVP, team MVP, I think I'm gonna give that to St. Brown, because he's been the rock, in my opinion. He's been the guy that's been most steady across the board on no matter which side of the ball you go to. That has been really the glue. And he saved his quarterback. He's saved some drives. He's saved some games. He's done, you know what I mean? He's won them too. So he's been on both sides, right? So that's kind of my take.
So did we need to stick with the offense to give a team MVP?
No, you don't have to stick offense. Now that was just me on the offensive side, but I was going ahead and give you a precursor that I'm going to give him my MVP as well. But now we can go over to the defense side.
I'm gonna start with the defense, Anthony, since you started with the offense. I'm taking something from you. Man, I'm just gonna give this man some love. Spencer Raxter said it. He said he was gonna lead the league in interceptions. He was called a madman. This is a man. If we're talking about the team MVP, it's Brad Holmes. Okay. And I'm going to tell you why it's Brad Holmes, but I'm going to talk about the
players. Wait a minute, man. Hold up.
Wait. I'm going to talk about the players, but I got to give Brad Holmes a little bit of love.
Make him GM of the year or something, man. You can't be throwing him in there. You're messing up our analytics and everything. How are we trying to put them together?
He's the GM of the league.
If you want to make him GM of the year across the NFL, go for it.
Okay.
Come on, man. Done. Why you going to take an award away from the players, man?
Well, because he found the players. I mean, I'm giving it to Curb, right? But this is Curb's third year as a safety, or is this is his third year in the NFL? This is his fourth year as a safety. He did not play safety in college until his senior year, and when he was drafted, we didn't really know who he was. We're like, okay, I'm a Michigan fan, right? So I'm like, we play Illinois. Who's Kirby Joseph? And then also Illinois is not a great team. But the way that he has come in and he has matured and he has just been, nose to the grindstone. He has been a guy that has just continued to develop. he has exploded onto the scene. I mean, he has 9 picks, the first time in 40 years. They didn't put him on the Pro Bowl ballot, which is wild. But I think he's going to be an All-Pro anyway. So, All-Pro is better. This is the same thing that happened to St. Brown last season. And then he was an All-Pro. But having that guy back there patrolling the deep thirds, you're not allowed to throw it back there. And he's the number 1 PFF rated defender. I mean, safety or DB in the league. Completion percentage is under 40%. I mean, he's just been phenomenal this season. And some people didn't think that he was even going to start for this team this year because they thought that if he was more dynamic and Brian Branch was more dynamic and we needed to see both of those guys out there on the field, I thought there was going to be a lot of 3 safety looks like what we had in the Chicago game if he came back. But I feel like defensively, you got to give it to Jake Herb.
I mean, a few years ago, I never would have thought these words would have come out my mouth. But in terms of guys who we've missed, when you never know a player's impact until he's out and you don't have him. And everyone said when Aiden went out, like we were going to miss him, we were done for. We were going to have a lot of trouble. But we survived in his aftermath, and we were able to, put performances together. The one guy we've not been able to replace is our team captain, Alex Anzalone. And when we bought him in a few years ago, when he came from the Saints, I was not enamored or enthralled at all. I think it was a time I was wanting us to draft Micah Parsons, something better, something more flashy at the position. And just very silently, very secretly over the last few years, he's just put together this defense. Like it's built with him. He is the one who controls it. The communication has just got so much better with him. He leads by example. He's just in there every single time someone makes a play. He's in there. He's involved. And I don't think, we've not been able to replace him in this defense. And it's kind of made me realize and appreciate just how much he does actually mean to us and how much we need him to be able to thrive in the absence of other superstars on the team, potentially. Because as I say, I know Aiden's huge for us, but we managed. Without Alex, we haven't. And, for me, when you miss a guy that much, that just shows you how valuable he is and, how much we need to give him kudos for. So I'd put him up there as certainly been the glue that's held us together. He's the leader, the commander. I would say it was him.
I love it. I think that defensively, it's, Kirby Joseph, he's upset over the snub, and he rightfully so, should be, on the Pro Bowl. I'm never going to understand that. I think someone should have to explain that one. I don't know how that could happen. I thought that was pretty much a lock. You really can't go on a defensive line. Aiden Hutchinson, obviously, I think he was going to be close in the running if he kept at his pace for Defensive Player of the Year and just having a phenomenal year. The only other, obviously Brian Branch, kudos to him for his Pro Bowl selection, and deservingly. I thought both our safeties would actually make it, to be honest with you. But outside of that, you gotta kind of make a case, if you will, for the other players and why. And the one that just stands out to me, and I see him just ascending, and I see his stock just going up, is Jack Campbell. And it's because of the dependability and the fact that he's been there all year. Yes, does he have some areas that he's got to improve? Is he going to have to work on his ability to cover? I mean, he's a big guy, trying to get him to go down the field and cover. It may not be the strength. I think walking him between the line of scrimmage and playing linebacker is kind of where you leave him. And at some point, maybe he becomes one of those guys that gets to roam a little bit, as he continues to adapt and become part of the system, which I think becomes very disruptive because no matter where he goes, you got to account for him. And he's been really aggressive in the run support. So, defensively, I'm looking at Joseph and I'm looking at Campbell as kind of being my two guys. Mainly, there's been some spot play by other players, some interior linemen and things of that nature. Corner's been, just kind of depending on the game, right? Somebody has a good game, but most time is about who didn't get most exposed. And outside of that, I mean, that's it. So you look at, for this team to be 14-2, and you can see how we have a conundrum and a thought process we go through on the offensive side. Defensively, you kind of go, if these guys wouldn't have gotten injured, then these are the players we may be talking about. But no, those players aren't here. So we've had to deal with the players coming and going and guys just trying to find their name. And Campbell is, like I said, I think for me, I think he's been a real good glue for them. I don't think he gets mentioned as much. I don't think people talk about him as much because of the excitement of the interceptions and all those other things that have happened. But I see him as being between him. I'd probably go two defensive, players of the year for the Lions. And I would probably go with Kirby Joseph and Jack Campbell on those two. But I know that big game coming up. We're coming down to the wire here. I know people have kind of hung in here with us. We're continue to smash the like button, continue to follow our channel. We'll get some wrap up thoughts on this upcoming game. Kind of, some real quick thoughts on what we think, will happen. But for the most part, I think this has been a heck of a year. To applaud these guys is the very least that we can do. Coach Campbell is the coach of the year, in my opinion. I think this is a guy that was skirted last year. I don't think you skirt him this year. And then Brad Holmes, to your point, I think at some point you start to continue to recognize what he's done. I just hope we can keep the coordinators. I think that's going to be impossible to keep both, but we'll see what happens and see if this team can stay together at least another few more years.
Let's say just quickly, do you see similarities between us and this Vikings team? Obviously, we're all worried about them. They came into this year. No one thought a great deal about them. A lot of people thought they were going to finish fourth in the division. Darnold is undergoing the Goff resurgence at the minute, but people had kind of written him off. Do you see a lot of similarities with the way they've done it with the way I have? Because I look at them and I'm like, that's why I'm scared of them, because they're a team who has been told, no, they're not good enough, and has just gone, yes, we are. And they're playing that way. They're playing with a chip on the shoulder and playing with a head coach who's probably underrated as well. He doesn't get talked about as a head coach of the year, like Dan doesn't either. It seems like there are more parallels between us than we may think.
There's a lot of parallels, because when Cousins went away, they brought in Darnold. We lost, Stafford, and we brought in Goff. And then you got your core wide receivers. Then all of a sudden, Lions, we lost Jamal Williams, and everybody thought, we got to replace him. And David Montgomery comes in, and everyone's not quite sure what's going to happen when he came over from Chicago. And then you get Jahmyr Gibbs getting picked in the first round, and people were like, I don't know if that was a reach or a stretch, and and there's some things up in the air. All of a sudden, everything is kind of laid out, and it's kind of worked out. So both teams have done that, but I think Minnesota built theirs off of the strength of a defense that existed, and the fact that they had some foundation there that was considered somewhat of a strength, and it's been a stabilizer. The offense has kind of been up and down. You get Justin Jefferson, who was injured. He comes back, and then all of a sudden now he's having, an all-pro year, Pro Bowl year. And then, you upgrade some other areas. Hawkinson, he comes back from injury. So now you have teams that match very well in terms of across the board. I think they've just been built slightly differently. I think, they hang their hats on different areas, but the balance is, I would have to say, if you look at through and through, Minnesota has that, but I just don't think they have the cohesiveness of the coaching to the players and then getting out of their players what the Lions get out of their players. And in this instance, unlike we've seen in other teams, that is a difference maker between the Lions winning and losing football games, whereas teams that may be more talented lose because they don't have the discipline, they don't have the locker room, and they don't have the collectiveness as a team. And I think that's what's been the winning factor for the Lions.
Yeah, 100%. As far as the coordinators, and then I'll go ahead and give my game predictions, but apparently Ben Johnson is not in the running for the Chicago job because Ryan Poles thinks that he wants him fired. So he's kind of shying away from Ben Johnson. But on the Vikings side, I feel like if Brian Flores is allowed to walk out of the door, there's a lot of things that are going to go south for the Vikings because the scheme that Brian Flores runs, I don't think anybody else runs it. So he is the mastermind of that defense, and if he leaves, it's going to be curtains. Let's hope. But we broke this down. We talked about the matchups. Obviously, I'm going to go with my Lions. I feel like what's going to happen is because of the defense, it's going to have to be a shootout, just like we saw in San Francisco. So I'm going to go 35-31 Detroit Lions to win the North, to win the NFC 1 seed. And we'll see them in the divisional.
I'm going to go the same. I mean, for me, and I'm glad Herm touched on it there, for me, it sounds like a bit of a non-answer, but I think this team genuinely plays harder than everybody else in the NFL. When it's under pressure, you know, both teams have the same stakes going into this, but is there that team that's going to go and do that 1% little more that they need, these fine margins to go win these games? You saw in the first game against us, you know, when Pace got the fumble return touchdown and we thought, oh, we're done for here. And then we didn't. We pulled it out the bag at the end. We got the walk-off field goal. We just always have it in us. We have an offense that shreds them every time we play them. I think Ben scored more than 30 points every single time that we've played against the Vikings because, again, you have a plethora of weapons, mainly Amon-Ra against the Vikings, that then opens up everything else for you. Goff was 22 of 25 in the last one. When you're running the ball well, you got sacked 4 times, but he was still performing great with what he had at his disposal. We run the ball well. We score a lot of points on him. I think the defense, I'm hoping Ford Field's going to be raucous, the noise. We're going to be able to intimidate Donald a little bit into mistakes. But I think there's enough there for us to be able to go, especially if Alex is back. That's going to be huge for us if you can get Alex back in the middle of that defense. But overall, we've got our punch. Our offense is our punch. And I think our players are just going to go that little 1% more because, you know, people are doubting this. People want this team to fail now. Like a lot of people around the league, they're fed up of Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes, this Lions experiment. You've seen the reaction of the rest of the NFC North fans. They're done with us as well. That's just jet fuel for us. And we thrive off that in these conditions. So I'm going to say we're going to win 30-21. We're really going to shut everyone up and we're going to get the bye, which we desperately need just to give everyone a week to heal up. But just as a matchup favoritism, even with all the defense lacking in guys, I still just think we're better than them. So, yeah, that's where I'm at with this.
Yeah, well, I think I'll end on this one. Get ready, get your popcorn ready or your expensive drinks or food that you're going to have down at Ford Field if you're there or if you're at home, because this will be a nail biter. I believe the Lions are going to have to strike back from behind. Unfortunately, I think they're going to find themselves somewhere perhaps getting down because I think this defense is going to be aggressive. I think it's going to force them into some things that they're going to have to adjust. And I think the Lions will make the adjustments. I just don't know when and where because I've seen this kind of playing out throughout the way. They've just been faced with some offenses that, you know, they've been able to kind of go back and forth with and go against those defenses. But I think it's going to be one of those come back from behind. It's going to come down to a field goal. And I think that's the way they're going to walk it off. I think that's going to be the glorious way. Whether you like to have your nerves shaken, rattled, and rolled a little bit, that's what's going to happen. Lions, you know, win. They're going to take the division. They're going to get their bye, and they're going to have home field advantage throughout. But it's going to come down to a field goal. So we called it here. So we'll see who's right. But we appreciate everybody jumping on the stream today. Appreciate you joining the Lions Nation Unite. Don't forget to like us. Continue to follow us on all our social channels. And smash that like button, man. Continue to show us some love. We appreciate you all coming in. Appreciate you both. I know we got our time differences. It's starting to get a little dark here. Pretty sure it's getting a little light down there in Australia or something like that. And Anthony, I don't know if you're getting ready to go to bed or get up, but I'm not a world clock guy. But we appreciate you. Appreciate everybody being on here. And as always, make it go.